Hello everybody and welcome to hangmansnews.com TV this 20th of March 2012. Today we are going to cover specifically an article in The Hill reports Russia sends special forces counter-terrorism units to Syria. And we're also going to cover an article from Human Rights Watch, Syria, armed opposition groups committing abuses. But before we get into that, we're going to just give you a little overview of the headlines, what's been happening today and lately. So, all right. We know on Friday, Obama came with an update of some martial law implementation. Obama implementing martial law coup, 16th of March 2012, NDRP executive order, National Defense Resources Preparedness. We have a few videos about that up on hangmansnews.com. If you look through all the categories, if you just look through the scrolling videos, the latest ones, they will still be there for a day or two, but you'll find them later in the categories. So I think we put one of them under politics and the other one, where did we put that? I don't know. You just have to look through it. You'll probably come across a lot of other interesting stuff too as you do that. I would like to start with this article that counters the other one that we're going to do first. Lavrov denies Russian warships off Syria, RIA Novosti. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov denied reports on Tuesday that Russian warships had arrived off of the Syrian coast to deploy soldiers. So it's obviously a two-side story, this. I mean, don't believe anything you hear, do your own research. But, so, all right, we'll start with that one, and I'll just read this article from The Hill saying that they have sent forces. So, like I'm saying, we don't know if this is correct. It's The Hill reporting this. Carlo Munoz has written it. So, headline report, Russia sends special forces counter-terrorism units to Syria. Moscow has sent elite units of Russian Marines and special operations forces to Syria to conduct anti-terrorism missions in the country, according to reports by Al-Arabiya. The troops were reportedly aboard two Russian warships that arrived at the country's naval base in the Syrian port city of Tartus on Monday. The news agency reports the ships joined up with a Russian naval reconnaissance and surveillance ship already anchored in Tartus, the reports add, citing sources within opposition forces in Syria. So, if this is so, what is going on here? I also saw on Russia Today that that Russia is now saying that they will help UN if UN can guarantee that they're not going to overthrow the regime there. So, and we also have, we have a video, and you can find it on hangmansnews.com. It's in one of the categories in the archives. It was from a week ago or something like that. It was a video about the Syrian girl. You can pull it up on YouTube, but typing in Hangman's News Syrian girl, you'll find probably one or two videos. and where she's talking about that it's Al-Qaeda that it is Al-Qaeda that is the rebels. So again, obviously we're helping Al-Qaeda at the same time as we're pretending to fight Al-Qaeda. We're fighting Al-Qaeda because they allegedly ran planes into buildings, which obviously is a proving inside job done by the American government somehow, and it's even declassified government plans. I mean, I remember an X-Files episode. All you need to do is to go on YouTube, type in X-Files, Mulder and Scully, you remember? Episode that never got aired, 9/11. It got aired once and then they took it off air because, you know, it was obviously a declassified plan. And still they went ahead and did it. So, but I was taken off air though. But it got aired. And you know, it's just so many smoking guns, Building 7 falling. I mean, yeah, that was probably, you know, no planes hitting it. Yeah, I bet that was Al-Qaeda too. Or maybe Al-Qaeda was too busy, you know, working for the CIA. So that's what this Syrian girl says, that Al-Qaeda is Al-Qaeda.
But so break down your view. What's happening? Break down the view in Syria of what people think of Al-Qaeda.
Okay, so in Syria, everybody knows that Al-Qaeda is the CIA. Like, it's really, really common knowledge. You know, you can ask any kid on the street, and he'll tell you that. So it's not really like what you just said. Though I haven't heard about it. It doesn't surprise me at all, because there's just so much information out there already of people that turned out to be double agents that, you know, were captured and supposed to be part of Al-Qaeda. So
yeah, go over that, because I've seen you. You have a great knowledge of it, the history of it, some of the examples proving it's Al-Qaeda.
Well, first of all, you have the one of the Libyan rebel leaders. Turns out he was tortured in Guantanamo Bay, and he's part of Al-Qaeda. And we all know that NATO and the U.S., you know, they supported the Libyan rebels. So they're you know, one of the big signs now, which is what I mentioned in my video, is that they're actually working with Al-Qaeda in these countries that we are seeing insurgency. So Libya was one of them. And in Syria, also, there are videos now coming out of some of the protesters and some of the people in the so-called Free Syrian Army, which is what the insurgents, the name they give themselves, carrying Al-Qaeda flags. And these are like widely available on YouTube. You can just search for it and it's there. If I can go on, another big indicator would be Al Jazeera, who's, since the very beginning, was the only station that was able to get video of Osama bin Laden giving speeches, and was the only one that was able to play them, well, or desired to play them. And you know, whenever we heard about Al-Qaeda, it was always from Al Jazeera. You know, they're here, they're there. It was the thing that was promoting them. And who controls Al Jazeera? Well, Qatar. You know, because it's Qatar's state TV.
Who is sending special forces everywhere to try to overthrow Libya, you name it, bringing in Al-Qaeda. And I mean, as you're pointing out, that's why Gaddafi knew to try to jam Al Jazeera, because they were beaming in pro-war stuff. It's so obvious.
And we've been hearing Alex Jones saying that for such a long time. You know, I don't know if you are familiar with Alex Jones, but he's definitely a very interesting radio talk show host. And
mysteriously, it caught on fire. And then after 4:30 p.m., the firefighters told everybody to get back. They were, quote, going to pull the building, the demolition term for demolishing one. They told Associated Press reporters, get back, we're going to pull it. And this building that wasn't hit by a plane, that had no damage to it, collapsed symmetrically. Building 7 was a block away where my hand is. But the red flashing square is where Bankers Trust still stands today. It had Tower 1 fall onto it, but just had light damage. The owner, Larry Silverstein, of the entire complex, got on TV and said that they had blown up Building 7. He said they pulled it, demolition. Well, Silverstein owned them all.
Oh, Silverstein owned all the buildings.
Yeah.
How many buildings are gone?
All of them.
How many is that?
That's right. That plane wasn't, that building wasn't hit by a plane.
And you really should look into what he's saying. You'll find links to his website on hangmansnews.com. And much of the news that we cover is actually from Infowars.com and prisonplanet.tv. And all right, so and the article continues. The Russian base in Tartus is the country's only naval installation outside the borders of the former Soviet Union. A Russian naval squadron conducted a port visit in January just as violence between rebel forces and government troops loyal to Syrian strongman Bashar al-Assad was coming to a head. So that was that one. But obviously, getting countered, Russian defense minister, foreign minister, Russia's foreign minister Sergei Lavrov denied report on Tuesday that Russian warships had arrived off of the Syrian coast to deploy soldiers. So we also have that. Worth looking into. Very, very good with a lot of intelligence, so you can actually find the truth, you know. If you just trust the media, you'll get lost in a wilderness of lies and propaganda. So definitely do your own research. We are trying as good as we can to bring you true news here on hangmansnews.com, and important news. Okay, this next one is from Human Rights Watch. This one came out today, March 20, 2012. Syria, armed opposition groups committing abuses. New York. Armed opposition elements have carried out serious human rights abuses, Human Rights Watch said today in a public letter to Syrian National Council, SNC, and other leading Syrian opposition groups. Abuses include kidnapping, detention, and torture of security force members, government supporters, and people. Goes on. And Infowars was also covering this. HRW, Syrian protesters carrying out torture executions. And this is written by Paul Joseph Watson. I mean, this other article is way too long for me to read it. I'll post the link for you in the YouTube version of the video so that you can actually go and read the whole thing for yourself. There's a lot of videos there you can click on. And I'm definitely not gonna sit here and take all of those videos down and post them in this video, because number one, was too many. Number two, we don't have the copyright. And number three, I don't want to do any propaganda for these people. I mean, what you see in the videos is that they're waving Al-Qaeda flags around. And I mean, we're talking about abuses, including kidnapping, detention, torture, security force member. Well, I mean, all right. I gotta concentrate there. Sorry about that. So this one was Infowars.com, Tuesday, March 20, 2012. A report by the independent Human Rights Watch organization confirms that Syrian opposition forces, euphemistically described as protesters by the mainstream media, are carrying out kidnappings, executions, and torture against Syrians deemed loyal to President Bashar al-Assad. The findings confirm the fact that Syria is in the throes of a civil war, with both sides responsible for indiscriminate violence, a fact that the establishment media has done everything in its power to hide in the effort to portray Assad's actions as genocide. The findings confirm the fact that Syria is in the throes of a civil war, with both sides responsible for indiscriminate violence, a fact that the establishment media has done everything in its power to hide. That's so important to get right there, in the effort of portray Assad's actions as genocide. So we obviously have to check things out for ourselves and not just take mainstream media's word on anything. Armed opposition elements have carried out serious human rights abuses, Human Rights Watch said today, in a public letter to the Syrian National Council, SNC, and other leading Syrian opposition groups. Abuses including kidnapping, detention, and torture of security force members, government supporters, and people identified as members of pro-government militias called shabeeha. Human Rights Watch has also received reports of executions by armed opposition groups of security force members and civilians. Oh yeah, so they're the ones we really need to help, you know. Them poor rebels, you know. Them poor armed rebels who are running around torturing and everybody. Yeah, we need to pay tax money so that we can engage in another illegal war, just so we can make some maniac rebels kill their own government. That's of course ironic. The report cites a number of eyewitnesses who attest to the fact that opposition forces have kidnapped and tortured to death members of Syrian security forces as well as civilians. One story recounts how armed men stormed a neighborhood and kidnapped a man's elderly parents. The gang demanded money from Marwan for the safe return of his parents, but later told him that they had been killed. After we saw a video on YouTube showing their dead bodies, we have not received the bodies back, dispute numerous plays, states Marwan. Iranian nationals are also being kidnapped and tortured into confessing they are members of Iranian armed forces, manufacturing the myth that Tehran has embroiled itself in the conflict. And this is from the Human Rights Watch. This is not from mainstream media. Human Rights Watch has received at least 25 videos on YouTube in which Syrian security forces and their alleged supporters confess to crimes under circumstances in which it appears that their statements have been made under duress. At least 18 of these videos show detainees who are bruised, bleeding, or show other signs of physical abuse, states the report. It's no surprise that elements of the opposition forces have been caught engaging in torture and executions, given the fact that many of them are being led by Al-Qaeda affiliated terrorists. Yeah, those are the so-called rebels we need to help. The same terrorists that helped the West overthrow Gaddafi. were subsequently airlifted into Syria to fight NATO's proxy war against President Bashar al-Assad. Hillary Clinton admitted in a BBC News interview that the US and Al-Qaeda were on the same side in Syria. Syrian opposition forces are now also rallying around the Al-Qaeda flag, just as their comrades did in Libya. This video shows Syrian activists flying the Al-Qaeda flag during an anti-Assad protest in the northern Syrian town of Binish. In another clip, armed Syrian rebels address the camera standing behind the table draped with the black Al-Qaeda flag. And if you go and see the video, you can also then go to Wikipedia and look the flag up. It is that flag. These terrorists have already carried out. Well, sorry, we did that when the Al-Qaeda raised the flag on the courthouse in Benghazi, because we could hardly believe it. So we actually had someone check the flag, and they said, "What the heck? It really is their flag." They went on Wikipedia and they found the original flag. So at least we're trying to do our research here on hangmansnews.com, all right. These terrorists have already carried out numerous bombings in Syria, including Saturday's twin-car bomb attack in Damascus, which killed 27 people, including a number of innocent civilians. The HRW report dovetails with the Arab League's investigation, which found that both sides were responsible for indiscriminate violence, a conclusion that was universally ignored by the corporate press. Only by framing the bloodshed as a one-sided genocidal assault by Assad's forces can a justification for Western military intervention be upheld. Corporate media networks have already thrown their weight behind dubious activists like Danny Daim and others who have been caught staging propaganda to reinforce the myth that Assad's forces are only targeting innocent people. So, alright, so there is a lot more in that video, a lot of video clips, in that article, the original one. We'll post a link to it on our YouTube video. So, if you want to look into it, go ahead. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But, yeah. I hope that you will go to hangmansnews.com, check out much more videos.
The news is brought to you by hangmansnews.com.